Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, mid-morning, mid-afternoon. Welcome back to State of Current Affairs with your host, Lillian S. Cauldwell. Incidentally, the S stands for Sarah, S-A-R-A. And Viki Esther Chang. She's from Singapore. I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania, USA. So welcome back to the show, everybody. We're Passionate World Talk Radio Network is a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain. Shout out to the two ladies who wrote comments on State of Business and Technology. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking a question. We got it answered for you within 24 hours. Remember, PWTRN is a resource center. So if there's something that you hear on one of our programs and you got a question, we've got an answer. So thank you once again. And let me turn you over to Viki, who will start off the program.
Thank you with a heart of gratitude to God, to Lillian, to the universe, to the listeners who are tuning in, and to the audience who are watching now, tomorrow, and forever. And such privilege to be able to have our voices heard. Think about 20 years ago, even like 10 years ago, where we do not have access to technology like this. Think about the world when the media was really just controlled as one of the fourth arm of the government, and the arm of the lobbyists or the richest people on earth who controls media. But now with democratization of technology, thank God and thank the technology, we have a voice, and we found a voice for the Main Street. And the State of Current Affairs is from the Main Street for the Main Street, and we try to present whatever we can in 20-25 minutes, as much as we can every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday now, through our podcast shows, State of Current Affairs, and we've got a new show coming up, State of Business and Tech, and it's exciting for us because the world is just swirling around, Lillian. It is going so fast, and today I read the news about singularity. It's not just the story of Asimov's science fiction. I remember when I was in college, we read the robotics stories from Asimov. That really sounded like a story from a fairy tale. But now it says that whatever has been said in the science fiction and in Hollywood, they are coming true. And in today's news, hopefully we're going to talk about that tomorrow or on Wednesday if possible. We're going to talk about singularity and some of the matrix that has predicted that singularity, that is the super intelligence of robotics and artificial intelligence. It will surpass human and control the world in 6 years' time. And when we think that is a dream, or that is just coming from the novel of science fiction, think about Google when it first started in the early 1990s, when we never had Google. And when Larry Page was talking about, yes, we're going to link up some pages and see what happens in the world through something called the World Wide Web. And hey, look at that. And in the early 1990s, Larry Page at that time has already been interviewed about the Google when it first started, when they were just trying to get some of the back links of the pages to see what happens on the World Wide Web, something called Google, where you can search through the text and it kind of jumps up to the eyeballs. Hey, look at it. How can we survive and live without Google? And look at Google Map. How can we live without Google Map? And think about the Google Map when I drive and I talk to my husband. Think about that. When it did not exist, And when someone tells you, hey, one day you will be tracked by the satellite, and the satellite will know where each and every car will go on this earth. You think that's a dream? You think that that's just like someone, just a crazy person rattling from the Institute of the Mental Health? Think about that right now. It's happening. And you can see like there is a traffic jam right in front, and that is going to be like 20 minutes or an hour. I think about what Larry Page said in 1990s when he was interviewed about Google, and he says that the only thing that can overcome and overtake Google is artificial intelligence. And he said in the 1990s, we are not there yet. The next thing that's going to overtake Google is artificial intelligence. But we're not there yet. But it's going to be incremental. And look at that right now. Um, 30 years later, about we are right now here, AI is going to take over Google and Larry Page and these visionaries. And think about all these visionaries that they say that they are going to occupy the space and Mars. Elon Musk, etc. It's happening already with SpaceX. But today we're not going to talk about that. We hope to leave that to state of business and tech. That's a little bit of shout out to what is going to happen in state of business and tech. Everything about technology, how the world is spinning so fast, and what it means by singularities with some of the people who are not aware that the robotics and artificial intelligence is taking over the world already. Singularity in 6 years. That is the latest matrix that has already been documented today with the graph. But we're not going to talk about that. That's just a little bit of trailer that's going to happen in the next episode of State of Business and Tech. And we will discuss the definition of singularity of technology and humanity in the next episode. And we also, in the state of business and tech, a little bit shout out again, we're going to talk about Stephen Hawkins and whether the prediction of Stephen Hawkins, who died in 2018, is he talked about the end of the world prediction, climate change, etc. We're going to just delve a little bit about what he said. Is it going to come true? So that is going to be in the next episode of Business and Tech. And also, we are going to talk about, hopefully in Business and Tech, we're going to talk about the prediction of the stock market crash. That was predicted since last year, 2023. It says it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, but things are holding back. It's still being supported. We will see if that will happen. The predictions of some of the world famous economists, and also our dear friend Robert Kiyosaki has said that many times. It's going to come, it's going to come. We're going to see if that is going to happen, and let's see what the article says in the next episode of State of Business and Tech. So this is just a shout out for what's going to happen for our new spin-off show with Lillian, Cauldwell, and myself. But today, two very interesting articles that I'd like to share with our viewers and listeners. The first article, something that I've really wanted to say for a long time. It says, from the Daily Mail and many, many articles that came out today, final moments of Russian actress exercising on her yoga mat before she's swept to her death in the sea. And the sea is at the popular tourist island in Thailand. There's a video of her, and she was posting, and don't think anybody can see that. There was a video of her and some photographs of her at the beach, and she was exercising, and of course she was on live. She was exercising at the beach, and she was, and obviously she is a famous influencer, and she's also a budding actress. It says, okay, you can find here um, www.dailymail-co-uk. So here it says that um, an actress was swept to her death by a giant wave while exercising on her yoga mat on a popular tourist island in Thailand. Her name Camilla um, Skea, 24 years old, was swept away from the beautiful Koh Samui Island, famous spot, just moments after filming herself on a pink yoga mat overlooking the Gulf of Thailand. Harrowing footage showed Camilla out in the swirling sea after being hit by a huge wave that is 6 meters and washed into the frothing waters. A bystander reportedly went into the waves to try to save her without success. His fate is also unknown. Later, the mat was seen floating in the violent seas of the island, and the Russia was from the tourist was from Russia. So there are many videos of her. Look at her, beautiful, and she's 24 years old. Um, this is a really sad news, and this is um, a picture of her exercising on her yoga. Sorry, but you've got to look at the article below. It was there. She was there exercising. It was a tourist sport, and of course, there are lots of tourists. They're taking pictures, and some of the tourists filmed her. It happened to film her, happened to take pictures. She was there filming herself exercising on a yoga mat just at the edge of a very low cliff, and the wave came, and the wave was 6 meters, and she was swept out into the ocean. And there was a video in this article that showed that she was swept out into the ocean, and her hands were wailing, and then there she goes, and then she disappeared from the surface of the earth. And I'd like to bring that up because again and again and again, every other day we see Instagrammers, we see influencers, we see tourists going to really dangerous places, taking selfies and then walking backwards to take the best selfie and then dropping down into whatever dangerous, hazardous, perilous spots. There would be signs that say, do not go near here, or do not go beyond the yellow line, do not go or climb over that thread, right, or that rope. And I'm just going to say that this article hit me because there are people who live their lives carelessly. And I get angry at that. Not only I feel sad, but I really get angry. She's beautiful. She's 24, but I don't care if you're 24 or you're 42 or you're 64, you're 74. A life is a life. Um, and it doesn't mean that you're young means that you have a more valuable life. If you are 74, I would think that you have an even more valuable life because you've walked the face of the earth. And we'll say a life is a life. And it makes me sad, it makes me more angry that people, I don't know what word to use. I'm not even going to use any other words, but I'm just going to calm down and say that you should not be doing that, to really say the least, right? Don't do that. Why should you do that? You're not 7 years old. And people are struggling for their last breath, for another breath with their oxygen mask in the hospital. What are you doing to your lives? What justification do you have to say that your life is worth that or doesn't worth a life when people are just trying to save their lives in the hospital? And I do not understand that intelligence or anything on earth that can't explain or justify that need to take a selfie, to take a video for whatever reason, for memory, for your friends to show off. I have no idea. I just want to say, everyone, that the world is not Disneyland. Like if you go to the waterfall, the nature, it's not going to tell you that it's controlled by someone to say that, hey, there is no controlled environment when you go to the waterfall. If you step out there, you may die. And you go to the waterfall, you slip and you fall, no one can save you. Because that's not Disneyland. And I think that reason I'm angry because people are living now in the Instagram world right now. People forget that the world is not made up of this Instagram world. Because the Instagram world, that instantaneous world, or the world that is made up for us to sell that advertising dollar, whatever the Instagram dollar, the monetization dollar, has made everyone on a subliminal level to think that we are living in Disneyland. And we are not. We are still living in a very dangerous real world. And why do I have, like, on Facebook, young people going on, I don't know what you call that, the kind of bungee jumping,
Zip
the
liner.
kind of, um, yeah, I mean, bungee jumping, or that
And
kind
then
of
the zip
fly.
liners they
I don't
attach
know what they
themselves
call it.
to.
That zip, yeah, the zip flying, or the kind of, I don't know what word, but they're courting death for that thrill. And I'm not saying that sports is not good, but that's why there is an entry level to be seen as a sports in the Olympics, because it must be controlled. There must be yardsticks and matrix to make it safe, to make it into a real world sports. But a lot of sports are not able to make it to the Olympics. Number one, they're evolving, they're still being studied, they're too risky. I mean, you see young people, right? They call it roof jumping. All right, you see a lot of videos, 15 years old, 16 years old. Now they die, and how many people they make it to the Instagram page because they still come alive because they're jumping across roofs? And what about mommy and daddies not being able to stop them because they're 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21? Some of them are 30 years old, and they're jumping off roofs, and they're like going down, and they're running across that um, train that is coming just to have that thrill. And I'm not saying sports are bad. I mean, we are pushing the boundary since Chariots of Fire, right? The 4 minute mile, the 4 minute mile. I should say that the 4 minute mile record, right? That has proven that human can run a mile under 4 minutes. However, I would say that without the confinement of a controlled environment, young people are needlessly courting death, and that is not responsible to their families. I think many daddies, mummies came and say, "Oh yeah, he died of while he died while doing what he loved." I mean, that's a politically correct statement. And how many times would you go back home to see the broken-hearted people? That is needless. And I would say that young people like that, every other day we hear news. Skydivers, whatever you call it. Right now they call it the bed the Batman divers without anything. They just dive down the mountains, and I'm just thinking, when the wind suddenly changes, look at what happening in the planes right now. The planes just drop because there was a sudden turbulence, and people just die in the planes because there is a sudden drop in velocity or the direction of the wind due to whatever extreme temperatures or climate change, or there's a sudden hollow or vacuum in that pocket of the air. Many people died unreported. But if you look at Google, if you look at death from dangerous sports, many people died. And there are, of course, sports. You call people who actually climb up the mountains without safety belts. I mean, they call it the there are so many different kind of sports out there, but I'm just thinking that if you want to risk your life, do something good first, right? That's all I'm saying. If I want to do something like that, make sure you have paid your due to humanity first, because there are people struggling so hard to pay their dues to live, and there are people struggling so hard just to have their final breath because they don't want to be taken away, young or old. So that not only young people like that not only tears my heart, it makes me angry. It makes me sad. It's a kind of folly. Folly. Um, I think people understand from the Shakespearean language, that depth of folly. Um, that's the only way I can say, for people who want to do that because they're not 7 years old. And if your mom and dad tells you, oh, look at the left, look at the right and left again when you cross the road, that's true. And what about taking a selfie, right? Look at the left, look at the right, and look at if there are any signs that says do not cross that line. Um, so I rest my case, Lillian. It just hits my heart and hits my soul that another of this needless, needless folly act that goes against the grain of humanity. When people are struggling for their lives, look out in the war. If you want to risk your life, go to the war. If you want, do something good with that. Um, Fight for the humanity. If you want to risk your life, that is something worthwhile. That is something I would say you are a martyr. Oh, a life well risked. So anything that's secondary, I'm sorry to say that you're not doing a service to humanity. You're not doing a service to society, and definitely not doing a service to young people who are looking at the Instagram and trying to emulate you silently. So that's my first article. Look at that. Really needless folly. That's the only thing I can say. Another very, very important news that comes out. I don't call it a news because I follow this person called Ray Dalio. Now, Ray Dalio has moved to Singapore, has moved his home office to Singapore, one of the richest men on the surface of the earth. He was the founder and CEO of Beachwater for a long time, investing billions and billions of funds. He talks about the he has Instagram page that I do follow. He keeps posting honor that
Right.
my book, our book, Gold Nuggets for Entrepreneurs, Lessons That Change Your Life. In one of the bookstores in Singapore was placed beside Ray Dalio's book, Principles. His book is just called Principles. Bestseller for many, many years. So he's come up with a new book, um, but I'm not going to sell this book, but I'm just going to talk about something that he says in his Instagram that deciphers the win of Donald Trump. And I'm going to read out verbatim. He says, I'm going to focus on two things. With with Donald Trump's win, there was a major shift of power to the Republican Party, which now is a much more unified before a particular ideology, which is almost a business, a capitalist approach to renovating government and renovating the country as a whole. You'll see industrial process, the use of technology to create an America first renovating the United States and renovating the government. And so now we're going to see that mandate being pursued in conflict with the bureaucracy it has to deal with, and also the opposition. That and you will see the appointments of those jobs of tough people who are united behind that mandate. That's what we're going to see. And it's not going to be smooth sailing, but it's going to be quite something that will be put aside some of the Democrat or the left mandate in terms of creating a broader based job or education or poverty alleviation. Social programs, environmental mandate will not be up anymore. It's going to be secondary. So number two, prepare for war. So the Republicans are going to put aside policies for environment, um, education, and poverty below, or social programs below. So we know that part of the other part is renovating, and the second part is preparing for war, at least the possibility of war. So we have internationally a conflict, a great power conflict like China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. That conflict is part of the world dynamic that will be pursued in some way that will change the policy. And it's important because we're coming from an era in which there was a world order intended harmony, but that world order is already moving away. Now, with Donald Trump, it is we versus them. The kind of economic policy or political policy that not everybody wants to follow. So the moral leadership of America is already over. It is now based on a changing world order, and you will see more international risk and conflicts. So my answer is about what's going to happen is that the template in the past, that there was a world order whereby America was the moral leader, has died. Now we are going to see a new world whereby America has put in a world order that says we versus them. So that is a very interesting um, there is a very interesting video from Ray Dalio, and I hope that I will continue what he says on his Instagram page about the New World Order. That with the institution of Donald Trump internally in America, he says that policies like poverty, education, social programs, and environmental programs will now become secondary. Those programs and those policies, the emphasis on it is going to go lower for internal American uh, the country, and also externally. In the past, we know that America was police, and in the past, America has been the moral leader, and it always emphasized on NATO, United Nations, having all these institutions to provide a world order and creating harmony in the world. That world is already over. So, a very interesting insight from Ray Dalio. He's got another video that came up before this about the five forces that faces the world. In studying the past world history for the last 500 years that he's done, because he's an investor, he wanted to invest, make sure his money goes to the safest places in the safest growth areas. He studies the world history, and he talks about the five forces about the world in terms of politics, a world order, etc. That can be found in his book, but hopefully I can share that in our podcast episodes about what he talks, what he says about world order and the five forces that affects world trend in the world. So Lillian, two interesting current affairs for you. Instagrammer influencer who lost her life. She's 24 years old, doing her yoga at the beach in a beautiful place in Thailand. Now, obviously, she's there because she wanted to show the place of Thailand. So we know these are the forces for influencers. They want people, they want the eyeballs. But that's sad, and also something from Ray Dalio, one of the richest uh, men on earth, the CEO and the founder of Bridgewater. So, um, Lillian, 30 minutes, over to you.
Thank you. I think that there are several reasons why people are daring the elements from nature. We've had several incidents in the national parks, especially in Yellowstone, where tourists have been warned not to go up close to the wildlife, especially the bison, which outweigh them by thousands of pounds. And yet it doesn't seem to sink in.
They take the
And every
photos.
day you hear about people being gored or thrown up into the air or trampled because they think it's not going to happen to them. And instead of just being the arrogant American now as arrogant people. And you mostly hear about this from people who are from the Western nations. And I include Russia in that because they do have a wealthy section, despite the fact that they're supposed to be a communal country where everybody shares the wealth. We won't go into that. But the thing is that I feel that a lot of these kids between the ages of 15 and 40, whatever, is that life has gotten very tame for them. And they've done everything risky when they
Yes,
were kids because they had the opportunities and the money to do it. And they
exactly.
don't really know what to do with themselves
Their lives.
or with their lives. And at 20 years old, your life is already over because they've already done it. I mean, I can look at my grandson, and he has advantages and opportunities that I don't have. And his life compared to mine is quite nice compared to mine. But the problem is, how is he going to react when he gets older and he realizes that he's done everything that as an adult he should have done as an adult and not as a child? I mean, my granddaughters are the same way. And I know what their future plans are for the workforce, and they're adjusting their work plans, their jobs, to accommodate what they love to do. And they're fortunate because they live in a world of technology where they can do that. But not everybody has those type of opportunities. So that's my first response. My second response is he's wealthy like Warren Buffett. But I got to tell you something. If a thermonuclear war happens, his money isn't going to be worth a damn. First of all, even if you do go into the bunkers in New Zealand, how long can you live in those things? Because if Russia nukes us, the winds usually blow in their direction, whether it's from Alaska or Hawaii. Japan will get it from Hawaii, and Russia will get it from Alaska. I mean, Russia originally owned Alaska and sold it to the US back in the day, in case you're interested. So the fact of the matter is that while he says, he reminds me of the boy who cried wolf. And apparently he's been crying wolf since the 2020s, actually. There was an article on the computer this morning about how many times he cried wolf about a thermonuclear war back in 2022. And of course, as normal average citizens, after a while, you start tuning out. I mean, yes, I've looked at the maps, and Philadelphia gets wiped out almost immediately. I'm not worried about it because I know Warrensville, even though we're 2.5 hours outside of Philadelphia, still close enough. So I don't worry about those kind of things. And I would really want to go out in the first wave because anything after that is going to be hellish, hideous. There's this film out on Netflix called When the Wind Blows. And it's an animation film showing two retired people, and he picks up from the library pamphlets telling him how to make a bomb shelter inside his house. I mean, they're products of World War II. They lived through that war. So they have the memories are based on what happened during World War II, which is not realistic to what's going to happen. Anyway, somehow they survive the blast because they live out in the country, but they die from radiation poisoning and fallout in the sky that you can't even see. So it's important to understand that, yes, you can go into a bunker and be okay, but you'll probably spend your life in there because Earth will not be okay.
We don't
Right?
have bunkers here in Singapore.
I don't have that kind of money to build a bunker. But the idea that you can survive a nuclear war and then go out with your billions of dollars and buy your way into what you need, or have your investments help you, those institutions are going to be destroyed. So it's not going to mean much to take paper cryptocurrency where people are making billions on now. Well, if you wipe out the internet and the structures that support it with the satellites, cryptocurrency isn't going to be worth much now, is it? Just something to think about, because I do think about these things and I laugh to myself because people don't seem to take it to the next step. I want to introduce everybody to a new concept. It's called relative. No, it doesn't mean your cousin Joe or your Aunt Mary or Uncle Tom. What it does mean is that everything on this planet, whatever you do, is relative, ties in to whatever actions you want to keep taking. So, as bad as things are, it's relative to maybe what you experience somebody in the Congo, for example. It's the same thought that you're both poor, you both live beneath the poverty level, you both are struggling to get clean water, food. It's relative, meaning whatever they're experiencing, you are experiencing. It's tragic that you're experiencing a wealthy, westernized country, but it's still relative to what's happening to the folks in Africa who can't get it at all. Yes, you are not cut off from the rest of the world. Yes, look it up. Look it up on Google. Ask Copilot. It will explain it to you very well. Just make sure you distinguish between your cousin Vinny and the rest of the world for the word relative. Because there are programs called relative speaking or all things are relative. They had a great movie on where it was relative. And they weren't talking about cousins or second cousins or relations. They were talking about what is the same, even though it's in a different environment, a different country, a different situation. So you can now say you've learned a new word for today. Spelled the same, sounds the same, but has a different meaning. Very important. Yes? And as for the wealthiest person in the world, take a look at the Egyptians. They tried taking their wealth with them, the pharaohs. And what happens? The tomb raiders come in and they steal. So they obviously couldn't take it with them when they went to Egyptian heaven, wherever that is. And that's something that these very wealthy people can speak about. And as for that gentleman who made the pronouncement of me versus them and all the social problems, my station manager has a little saying, life is a bitch, and what comes around goes around. So please remember, maybe they're right, but the very institutions that Mr. Trump and his fellow dictators are getting rid of will do them in at the end. Don't pay any attention. Global warming doesn't exist. Fine. Do you know that Earth is already off its tilting by about 3.5 degrees, and the scientists can't figure it out, although they suspect we, quote, humans have something to do with that, and that we are hastening our own end? I mean, they're already predicting the end of humanity way before we were ever out of the 20s or the 2000s, if you want to put it that way. And that doesn't say a lot for us, considering we're supposed to be the smartest species on this earth, although octopus certainly ranks very high up there since they are also problem solvers. Just thought I'd throw it out to the universe because man has a habit of being very arrogant and thinking that they are the superior species. But I wonder how superior we really are if we keep on engaging in the same behavior and not learning from it. I mean, Mr. Putin, what are you going to gain by nuking the Ukraine or England? You're not going to get anything. Land, that land will be out of operation for at least 1,000 years. You're going to annex total and complete devastation of land that you can't use. Didn't you learn anything from Chernobyl? I mean, they're doing studies on the dogs from Chernobyl, and they're saying they're evolving in a way that science has not allowed for. They're still survivors of Hiroshima. Maybe you ought to talk to them before you unleash hell on earth. Now, if you're talking about pride and arrogance, that doesn't surprise me. Go study the great apes. Yes, well, I'm not going to go into that discussion either. Those are my viewpoints and my comments. If you disagree with me, text me 484-364-1032 or email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com and say, Lillian, Viki, I want to come on your program and tell you what I think. Don't be afraid. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. And I am not going to be intimidated by fear. If you live in a large metropolitan city, you've got enough fears going on, except maybe Singapore. So think about that. And we're going to wind it up. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening, to listen to State of Current Affairs. Tomorrow is another day, another podcast, same time, same place, same aliveness. So think about that. And instead of dwelling on thermonuclear war, dwell on what artificial intelligence can do for you today. Just go over to aiwithlillian.com and see what Ruby AI can do for you. It is one of our sponsors. Also, if you want to get your memoirs out before, 2025 is right around the corner, you want to contact us so that we can help you get your memoirs out and tell the world what it so desperately needs to hear. And just for your information, I caught an editorial cartoon on Facebook earlier today, and I posted it because I thought it was very relative to what's going on these days. And it has an outline of a mosque, and underneath it says approximately that an undocumented brown-skinned immigrant came to the world and spread a message of peace and love. And it was, of course, written tongue-in-cheek because everybody knows who that immigrant, brown-skinned, undocumented person who came in to Bethlehem had the nerve to do. Just something for you to think about. Thank you very much. You want to see this all over again, but hate going over to YouTube? Well, just go over to passionworldtalkradio.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, find State of Current Affairs, click on that, take you to a Google page, a web page, Google link, click on that, and it'll take you into the belly of the beast where you can see all the state of current affairs until your stomach is so full you don't need any more nutrients until tomorrow, for example. So thank you all very much for listening and have a great day, or enjoy Tuesday for those who are on the Singapore time zone. Have a great one.